Hello, my friends. I'm Dr. Rodrigo Rodriguez, Medical Director of BioCare Hospital. And many of you might already know me and know about my quest and my fight and the real task that I feel I have for you, in front of you, to help you to sort out the health challenges that we're facing today. We have to remind ourselves just about every day of the continuing and devastating effects that what we put in our mouths has on all the health problems that we have. I have said it repeatedly, most of us are going to die of a chronic degenerative disease. And most of those problems are going to be related to what we eat, to the food we consume. And at the same time, the help, the protection, the restoration, the resurgence of health can also come from those very same things that we eat, from food. So food could be a foe or could be our help. Suffice to say that most of us are going to die of chronic degenerative diseases, and right now we estimate that more than half, about 7 out of every 10 people, are going to die of a food-related illness. That's right. Most of us are dying because of what we consume at our table. That's if we're lucky, because many of us will consume it while driving, on the desk, walking, on the bus, etc. Because food has taken such a secondary place in our lifestyle that no wonder we're suffering the consequences. You know it, you have seen it at workplace, at many places, that we barely have time to eat. Used to be that food was almost a sacred ritual in every family. We at least devoted one meal every day to sit around the table and to share in family the good things that the farms and the ground and the soil will provide us. We would have fresh eggs, we would have grass-fed milk and dairy products, we would have very good food, and everything came from the land and everything came from the farm. And we at least once a day sat to eat. Is that important? Well, just think of your car. What would happen to your car if you just fill the tank with whatever, you lubricate with whatever? That's if you do it. Because you know many people will fail to take good care of their machines only to have a piece of junk in no time. And that's what we're doing today. Food takes a very secondary place. I've seen it many times, that we're walking around and you say, just give something to the kids because they're hungry. And that something might be a sugar bar, might be a soda pop, might be something, just so they shut up and let you go on with your life. We don't sit to think as our grandmothers did. We have to feed the children. We have to provide for them to grow healthy. We have to make sure that everything we're feeding our children is going to turn them into a strong individual that's going to be very resilient, that's going to resist infections and illnesses and so on, so he can grow and mature and be as good as he can be. Because I have taken very good care of him. Because my boy, my girl, are a very important part of my life. We don't do that anymore. We don't have anybody actually in charge of food anymore. Used to be that we had a housewife. That's gone. But nobody has taken the responsibility to say, let's sit down and let's plan the meals for the day. Let's plan what we're going to eat, and let alone how we're going to feed the children. All we do is buy ultra-processed, ultra-refined foods with a very long shelf life. We buy them in quantities, we stock them somewhere, and we just open a box and put it in the microwave or a can or anything like that, and we just literally fill our tummies without thinking if whatever we're putting in our mouth has the nutritional content and the quality to provide with the substances that we need for our nourishment, to grow, to create muscle, to create electrical signals for our brain, for our heart, for our muscles. We don't think about that anymore. It's just fill you up, and if that doesn't fill you very well, which is what's happening today, what's going to happen is that because the nourishment or the food I'm taking is not nourishing, I'm going to be hungry in a little while. What do? I take a snack, and then another snack, and then another snack. And we keep on eating snacks, sugar bars, soda pop, coffee, you name it. Ice cream, sweets, because unfortunately sweets is one of the things that we do the most. What has happened? Where did we lose the track? When did we start doing all these things? Well, I think in a very important measure, all this has happened because we have not been paying attention. And all we do is we sit to watch TV before, now in front of our cell phone, and just get general information about food. And we believe advertisement. We think food advertisement is ethical, and that they're giving you a message on how to nourish your body. You never think that the food industry is just trying to make a buck. You never think that they want to profit out of what we have to consume every day, which is food. So what they want is low quality, low cost, long shelf life, and just create something that you're going to like and buy again and buy again, and the more you eat, the better off they're going to be at the lowest cost for them. So, and I don't have to tell you, the first objection I always have whenever I tell somebody how to eat better, they many times tell me, but doctor, that's going to be more expensive. In other words, we all recognize that eating well might be a little bit more costly, but not as much as what you have to pay in doctor's fees, in laboratory fees, in x-rays, in imaging, hospitals, let alone the fact that you're going to have a short life and you're going to suffer a lot. So let's rewind everything. And that's why I, on purpose, plan 2 segments, 2 full programs on food. First of all, I'm going to analyze where we are at this point. What we have done wrong. Why having a soda pop can be so bad. Why diet drinks are poison, not your friend at all. Why going back to good quality fats is very important for your health and your survival. So let's analyze, let's make a diagnosis of where we are and what has happened. And then in the next program, let's talk about, okay, I got it, I have the problem. How do I solve it? Where do I go? Because one of the big problems that we have today, and you have probably lived through it, you go to the doctor and the doctor tells you you're overweight, you should lose weight. Well, that's his job. You cannot tell the patient you have to lose weight, period. Because you are the patient. You have a health issue. You have a problem. Being overweight or fat, and we have a program about obesity that you can link on right now, or as soon as you finish this segment, and then you're going to understand that having overweight or obesity is an illness in itself. You're sick. You're not just a glutton, and you're not just lazy because you don't exercise and because you eat too much. No, you're sick. You have a health problem, and it's the duty of your doctor to help you out, to tell you how, to tell you what has happened. And once again, you can link to that segment, and you're going to have a lot of information. And that's exactly what I want to do today. I want to provide you with information. Information is power, and the more you know, the more you understand. I'm trying to make things clear for you to understand what's happening. The better you can plan your future. The better you can plan what you eat, how you do it, and the better you're going to be able to raise a healthy family, let alone you yourself. I have said it repeatedly. You are the biggest asset you have. Not money in the bank, not real estate, nothing compares to the fact that you're alive and you can make decisions, you can do things, you can switch one investment to another, you can take care of everything every day as things develop. That is absolutely priceless. And the worst of it is, nothing matters if you're in bed or if you're dead. So it is very important that we develop more conscience. And that can only come from information. That can only come from interest. And that's my quest. That's what I want to do. I want to convince you that most of the health challenges that we're facing today are connected to food. And I don't want to talk about nutrition, or I don't want to use any fancy word. I want just to refer to it as what it is, food. What we put on our plates, what we put in front of us to be consumed, to be digested, to be taken advantage of, or to poison and intoxicate ourselves. Don't go anywhere. Please take a lot of attention and share all this information. You're going to be helping other people too. You're with Dr. Rodrigo Rodriguez, medical director of BioCare Hospital. And I really hope that you're following this program, because we're talking about what can be more important than food. Food is very important because it can be our best friend and it can be our worst enemy. Food can be a blessing or can be something, can be a villain. It can produce a lot of damage. And it is really, really, really completely under control. That's what I want to bring to your attention. What you bring to your mouth is under your control. Unless you're in a hospital bed or you're in a cell in a jail. Otherwise, you can choose what you eat. And if you understand a little bit more about food, you're going to be able to plan better and to be good to yourself. And let me tell you, I think you're not going to be spending more money. And in the following program, I want to talk about answers, not just spelling the problem, and then you're going to see what you can do. And you're going to see that's not that difficult. It's not that complicated. Let's begin with basic foods. Because that's where we went wrong. I'm going to start talking about sugar, because sugar is our biggest enemy today. Why? Is sugar bad? Are you telling me that sugar is a problem? Well, sugar in itself, it's an energy-producing food. We need sugars. And actually just about every food in the vegetable kingdom, vegetables and fruits, contain sugar, a form of sugar, different types. But if we do them at the overwhelming amounts of sugar that we do today, then we have a real big problem. And actually, if I wanted to spell, and that's why I'm beginning with sugar, the biggest culprit of today's health problems would be sugar. If I could get sugar out of America, I'm sure we would be doing very well. There's not one thing in sugar that you cannot get from other food. So number one, is not an essential food. An essential food is when you eat something that if you don't eat that food, you will never be able to have it. Vitamin C is the best example. If we don't take vitamin C from a fruit or from a veggie, then we're going to have scurvy. And you can die of scurvy. We never talk about it because we don't see it anymore. But when people were traveling across the oceans, the sailors were all of a sudden dying until they discovered that if you just carry oranges and limes on the boat, they wouldn't get sick because we cannot make vitamin C. But with sugar, it doesn't have any of those things. So whatever sugar provides, we can get it somewhere else. So it's not an essential food, number one. Number two, we just eat it in overwhelming amounts. And by we, I'm going to mention specifically America. Americans eat more sugar than anybody else in the world. We have it everywhere, even in salad foods. It makes a hell of a preservative. So if you buy canned beans or canned things, you can get a lot of sugar in it. If you have a healthy cereal from a box in the morning, it's going to have a lot of sugar. If you have a soda pop, it might have 12, 15 teaspoonfuls of sugar per can. Actually, we consider that if you have just one soda pop a day, that's giving you 50 pounds of sugar a year. Another interesting number is that many toddlers eat more sugar a year than their body weight. Because how we compensate children, how we make them happy, even pediatricians, they give them a lollipop. So we make them happy with sugar. We give them candy, and we have trained them to do that. And when they watch TV, when they look at advertisement, it's all created for them to lure them into the sugar world. And we're creating a big problem. Number one, it's very interesting to mention that sugar is probably the only substance that's a lot more effective by mouth than intravenous. If you put intravenous sugar, the levels of sugar grow to a certain level, at certain speed, which is very fast, you're putting it in the vein. But if you take sugar, you start creating an insulin and a metabolic response even before you swallow it. Why? Because the moment anything sweet touches your mouth, your brain gets the message. and lets the stomach, lets the pancreas, lets all the organs know that sweet is on the way. And they start a huge metabolic response. If you put sugar in the vein, you get a raise of so much of insulin. But if you put sugar or something sweet in your mouth, the insulin response is a lot bigger, because there is a cerebral and stomach phase of sugar metabolism that's going to trigger the release of all these metabolic substances. So let's say you have a diet pop. Oh, no, I don't take sugar. I just take a diet pop. Well, the moment it touches your mouth, that sweetness is going to trigger the same response. Your insulin secretion is going to increase, insulin resistance can happen, and a lot of hormones, also from the stomach and the intestinal tract, can start producing the metabolic response that you do not want. Actually, it has shown that people that have diet sodas gain more weight at their waist level than people that just have plain sugar. We eat too much sugar. And on top of that, we highly refined it. We have taken all the minerals, we have taken all the possible nutrition that's in the original sugar cane, and then we grind it to a very fine powder. So that means that it can be readily absorbed at a very high speed, creating a metabolic problem. Because the body is not used to that. That's not a natural substance. Every time we drop a food for a substitute that somebody in a laboratory or in a factory thought was better than, we create a problem. Same happens with wheat and cereals. You have heard about gluten intolerance, I'm sure. But where gluten intolerance is coming from? If you talk to your grandmother, she's going to say, I didn't even know. I don't know what gluten is, let alone gluten intolerance. But whenever people tell me today, I have gluten intolerance, should I stay away from wheat? I always say yes. And not because wheat, again, is a problem. It's because the type of wheats that we use are much richer in gluten today than they used to be. And when we make bread, we don't do any fermentation, because it takes too many hours. Once again, you want to sell bread at a very low cost with a large profit. I'm not going to make a dough, let it raise, and take time for it. That's going to take too much. It's going to make bread expensive. No, I want something cheap, readily available. And the grinding of the wheat today creates the same problem I was mentioning with sugar. It's so well ground that you produce a very tiny particle of flour that can be readily and fastly absorbed. Those create metabolic problems because our body was not created to deal with these fake artificial foods. So think again, you're not eating what you think you're eating. Let's go to other things. Fats. And on fats I could talk for hours. Somebody, sometime in the 1960s, 50s, they convinced us that fats were very bad. And what we did was we dropped good fats that are now proven to be good, like beef tallow, like lard, olive oil, coconut oil, and we drop them for vegetable oils, which are unnatural, are chemically managed, genetically managed, and again, we're eating a Frankenstein food. But if you go to the natural oils, like butter, like olive oil, like beef tallow, like lard, you're talking of fats that were God made. I'm sure that Jesus, in the Last Supper, had olive oil on the table. So what's wrong with it? But now we go for vegetable oils that are produced in a way that if you look at documentaries on how those oils are made, you're not going to eat them anymore. And they're chemically modified to change the consistency, the flavor. They're, of course, flavored, colored, you name it. That's not for human consumption. Stay away from them. You have to go for the natural, God-made fats. And don't be shy with them. More butter. Real butter. It's good for you. Contains very high nutrition. Just make sure that you get grass-fed milk dairy products. Because cows are ruminants. They do not eat grains. They're not made to eat grains. They're made to eat grass. So grass-fed dairy products are not only good for you, they're fantastic foods. And don't give children anything else other than whole milk. Low-fat milk is a very bad idea. Stay with me. I think this is getting interesting, and I want to tell you a lot more about it. You are with Dr. Rodrigo Rodriguez, Medical Director of BioCare Hospital. And I've been talking about something which is very basic. Just like breathing, just like drinking water, I'm talking about food. And the reason I didn't want to use the word nutrition or anything like that is because what I really want to talk about is food. I'm not talking about the metabolic consequences of how you eat and how everything moves within the body, etc., etc. The metabolic changes, how we generate the energy in the mitochondria, how things happen in the body, etc. Just want to talk about something very simple. What I bring to my pantry, what I bring to my fridge, what I put on the table. Simple. If I'm about to buy food, if I'm about to bring food, if I'm about to feed me or my family, am I doing mistakes? Probably yes. And it's not your fault. It is because we have been, for many years now, probably 50 years, under the assault of the food industry. And, of course, the compliance of the government. Remember that the famous food pyramid was born not from scientists. It came from the US Congress. So it is politicians that rule most of what we eat today. And, of course, aided by the food industry. Well, you know what? If you just open the beginning of the Bible, it just says that I give you these plants, these animals, these fish in the ocean, etc., for your nourishment. If you go to any supermarket today, you don't see fresh food. You have a very short part of vegetables where you find exactly the same thing of everyone. Peppers, broccoli, probably, if you're lucky, some sprouts, zucchini, cauliflower, things like that. But you probably find 10 things normally. But you don't see ever seasonal food. I mean, you go to Alaska, and I tell you because I have done it many times, go to a supermarket in Alaska and just buy a mango. You wonder how many miles has that mango traveled? Number one. Number two, is my metabolic cycle really adjusted to eat those foods? If I was born and raised in Alaska, I'd be much better off eating the food that Alaska produces. And said that, it's the same thing if you live in Arizona or in Florida. Choose the foods that are grown locally. Go to farmers markets. Go to places that provide you foods that are around you. And I have always said, follow my 100-year rule. Eat things that were available 100 years, but if you have something really new, don't be so trusty. Don't just go for it because you saw an ad on TV or anywhere or in any website telling you that that food is good because it has this, because it has the other. No, go for the things you already know and see what's in your area. Next Sunday, go to a farmer's market. Next Sunday, go around. Ask people, ask your neighbors. If you can plant a few things at home, that would be ideal. But you don't have to do it. But many people do it for you. But just choose local food. Not food that has been produced, mass-produced, or industrialized. Because you've seen it. If you go to many markets today, I'm talking about supermarkets, you see all these cardboard boxes filled with things that are your food. So let's be more creative, be more careful. Because after all, you're talking about the food I'm going to bring to my body and to those people that I really love. The more I do it, believe me, they want your dollars. They will start producing much better food. So take your dollar wherever they provide what you need, and that will change the industry. I'm sure of that. I've seen it many times in my lifetime as a doctor, that if you like this sort of good food, it'll be produced and stimulated, etc. We're talking about foods that we have damaged in such a big way that today are more a foe than a help. We're talking about sugar. We're talking about grains and flour in particular, white flour, and we're talking about wheat. How it has changed in such a way that today is a problem. It's a health problem. It's a health threat. People say, no, doctor, I cannot eat this because I'm gluten intolerant. So we have to make changes and go for different grains. And we have to go, there are many options. And that's what I'm going to talk in my following program. Because today I want to make a diagnosis, but then we're going to talk about what to do. Let's go to the next segment. We're talking about fats. And we're saying that fats are good for you. And yes, they are, as long as they are natural, God-made fats. What are those? And there are not too many. You can go for olive oil, probably coconut oil, lard, beef tallow, and butter, real butter from grass-fed cattle. If you fulfill those categories in those fats, they're not only not going to be harmful, but they're going to be healthful. If you feed your children with whole milk, grass-fed whole milk, it contains substances that will prevent diabetes, which is growing in epidemic proportions. But somehow we decided that children should have low-fat milk. That's a big mistake. Don't do it. Low-fat meat should not even exist. I tell many times in my conferences, if God wanted us to have low-fat milk, what makes you think that God didn't make low-fat milk producing cows? If it doesn't exist, it's because it's not natural. Don't do it. And something that in a way gives me dismay and frustration is that everything I'm telling you today is based on very important medical literature that has been probably over 100 years. But the information that we have getting lately, more and more and more, is endorsing everything I'm telling you. So why nobody tells you? Why it doesn't permeate to the general public? Why don't you know about it? I leave the question in the air because I do not have the answer. But the facts are there. There are hundreds of medical studies, thousands, hundreds of thousands of medical cases that vouch for what I'm telling you. One of the fates that we had probably in the 1990s is that, okay, if I cannot eat all these things, I can eat a lot of meat. Why? Because meat, which originally was put as a bad guy because of the fat content, now you could eat whatever you want. Watch it. If you eat a huge amount of meat, which many people do today, I mean a 12-ounce, a 16-ounce beef is not out of this world, it's frequent. So if we eat too much meat, what's going to happen is that we can also raise insulin, and insulin, once again, is the problem with obesity. So yes, we can eat meats, but let's look for normal amounts of meat. What's normal? 6 to 8 ounces a day, 2 to 3 times a week. I think that's more than enough. See? And milk, once again, grass-fed and dairy products that come from that type of milk. And finally, eggs. If we have good raised, free cage, etc., organic eggs, they're absolutely normal. There's not one single serious study that can prove that eggs will raise your cholesterol. You know what raises your bad cholesterol, by the way? Vegetable oil, trans fats. So those are the ones that we have to avoid. That's why I was very clear about the type of oils that we should have, the type of fats. Vegetable oil is an unnatural fat. It has been manipulated genetically, and it has been chemically manipulated. And trans fats in particular will up your bad cholesterol and lower your good cholesterol. So go to your pantry, get it out of your life. Get olive oil. Get something that you can eat, something you can enjoy, and something that's going to nourish your body and make you healthier. Did you know that 1 ounce of olive oil a day is enough to bring your blood pressure down? And I'm going to give you a hint. 1 ounce of olive oil with half an ounce of vinegar, just apple cider vinegar. Mix it and drink it. It tastes like a salad dressing. It's very tasty. If you do it every day, you're going to be helping your body because of all the qualities of the olive oil and because vinegar lowers the spikes of insulin. Once again, insulin is the culprit of weight gain, not calories. It's insulin. So if we can keep insulin secretion at bay, we're going to start doing much better metabolically. So I want you to get more information. And I know it's easy to say and go to look for it in the web. You might not be very good at that, but you can call me. You can send me an email. You can contact me through the platform of your choice, to any media you want, and I will be answer you personally. Don't go anywhere because we're not finished yet. You are with Dr. Rodrigo Rodriguez, Medical Director of BioCare Hospital. My quest, my idea, my dream would be that you start paying attention to all the messages that we have about how to eat well. how to choose our foods. As I was telling you, there are literally hundreds of studies that have been done from, some of them are from 200 years ago, of people that were just watching what happened when we ate too much, what happened when we ate this or the other. But some of them are really, really good. All you have to think, for example, is that at the turn of this century, I'm talking about the 20th century, in the 1900s, there was no treatment whatsoever for diabetes. You know what they did? They managed food. And there are books about the diabetic cookery and about how to control the sugar level by eating. If they could do it without any medication, without any insulin, don't you think we could be helping our diabetic people a lot if we just take that good piece of advice? If we cut on grains and sugars and all these things and eat more fat, I already explained what type of fat, just good fat, gut-made fat, not laboratory factory-made fat, but good quality fat. If we just do that and eat some meats, etc., you're going to be doing a lot better. And when I say meats, once again, when I say sugars, when I say this, when I say fats, I'm all the time talking about God-made things, natural foods. I'm not talking about any fake factory-made food, because those are not really foods. Those are things that were produced to fill you up, to make you hungry as soon as possible so they can sell you more, and to produce all these things at a very low cost, so profit is there. So what we have to think is, I don't want to go that route. I want to see what I want to eat. So when I say meat, I'm talking about meat. I'm talking about the muscle of an animal. Now you say, okay, doctor, this is a frequent question. You say meats. What about ham? What about bacon? What about sausages? What about all these things? People have eaten them for hundreds of years, and nobody complained about any health problem with them. You know why? Because when they made these things, when they made, for example, a leg of ham, they let it just alone. They salted it, period, and they put it in the sort of environment and humidity and climate that it could age naturally. And then bacteria and fungi came upon this piece of meat, and as it dehydrated, they created a number of natural substances that gave it its color, its consistency, its flavor. What we buy today, that pig was killed a week ago. How can you have a piece of ham today? Well, because they do a lot of chemical manipulation in order to age the meat very fast. Watch it. That's not good for you. So when I say we have to eat a good amount of meats and be careful, and I'm talking about 6 to 8 ounces a day, probably 3 days a week, I'm not considering any of those meats that have been produced in a factory. Stay away from them. Unless you can go to places like Hungary, or like the Netherlands, or like the Northern Europe in Norway or Sweden, and you can buy naturally produced meats. There you can do it. If you go to Spain, you can get the Iberic ham, which is very famous, but it is, again, the result of a long time natural process. But if you don't have access to those, and not that you need them, don't do them. Get your fresh meats, good quality, check that they're organic, check that they don't have any hormones, check that they don't have any things, and that way you're going to be improving your health. There's a good piece of news that has just been published. You know, if you're as old as I am, and you don't have to be that old, you remember the times where we didn't have organic food. So it's not a very old thing. But if we check the statistics from the time that organic food was introduced to the market to today, the studies show a very positive outcome. That people that prefer organic food have much better health scores than people that do not. So it pays. It pays to spend a little bit more in organic food. It pays to buy better quality food because it's going to keep us healthy. And you know what has happened also all this time? That the prices of organic, good quality food are coming down. Because more of us are favoring the consumption of that quality of food over the other. So that can make a big change. We can have our change and get it at a lower price if we all contribute. So those that can afford to buy better quality food, please do it. Because they're going to bring down the cost for food producers so more people can enjoy the benefits of good quality food. So it goes hand in hand. Now, when you start planning all these things, there's so much information. As I told you, there are hundreds of research papers. Some of them are impressive, like the Peer study that has almost 250,000 individuals being followed through years to see what they do, what they eat, and what's the end result with their health over a long period of time. You have the nurses study in Massachusetts. You have other studies in different parts of the world that are following all this information because it's dawning on some people the importance of having real scientific facts about human nutrition. Those results have brought a lot of good things. Like, for example, aspartame has been declared by the World Health Organization as a forbidden product because it can produce cancer. And many substances are being banned or put out of the market because they produce health issues. But only those studies, that category of studies, can shed real light on what we should do. And you don't have to go through all of that. But I'm sure you're going to have questions. I'm sure you're going to have doubts. I'm sure when you sit down, and I please ask you to do that, when you sit down with your family, with friends, and you said, listen, I heard about this and that, and there are going to be questions coming back, well, what about this? I say, don't drink diet sodas. Well, why not? I'm saving this, and then I don't get the calories and so forth. Ask me. I'm going to be there for you. Anytime, any day. I'm in the social media of your choice. So when you're reading your emails, when you're reading your contact things, you can say, oh, I'm going to ask the doctor. Send me a WhatsApp, send me a Twitter, send me an Instagram, send me anything simple, or if you want to talk to me directly, I'll be happy to. If you want to contact me through an extensive email, I'll be happy to talk to you. But just don't sit down and wonder. Try to get the facts. Because if you get them right and you get them on time, you might be saving yourself of being my patient. And I don't want you as a patient. I want you as a friend. I would like a lot of people contacting me and saying, I'm going to change the way I live. I'm going to change things. There is a town in the United States that decided to lose weight. And the whole town registered their weight. And they started going on a diet, and they started doing things. And they were publishing all the pounds that the whole town was losing every week. I'd love to do that. I'd love to make an example of people that listen and followed and changed and switched to a healthier lifestyle. And look at them through the years and see that they continue to work and see that they continue to be productive and they continue to enjoy life. And they could see their children to grow up and go through the university and get married and have grandchildren. I don't like people sick. I have been a doctor for over 50 years. And one thing I can tell you for sure, it's never nice to go to the doctor. It's never nice to be sick. It's never nice to go to a hospital unless you have the right motives. And the right motives should be, I'm going to consult you about my status and how I can get healthier. And we offer that too. If you want, you can say, I'm going to take a BioCare health getaway. The same way some people take a cruise ship for vacation, I'm going to go to BioCare and be assessed and be diagnosed and have a real clear status of where my health is and where it's going to. And I'm sure they're going to be able to help me. So contact me anytime. I'm your friend, Dr. Rodrigo Rodriguez.